Thank you so much. So welcome again to the MAIA Meet-up, introducing the fellows. So for those of you that joined last time, we actually originally created this space as a quarterly kind of get together that would run across the year. Because our work is so deeply rooted in relationships, we know that not every time we have events, not everyone can always join those. And we wanted to be able to carve room to keep our connection strong in community, talk about our work internally and externally, and create as many access points as possible to some of our thinking, our processes, aspirations, and the things that are kind of moving us and driving us forward. So we've been really busy since the last meetup. We've had lots of public and outgoing delivery. So since the last one, we've done Space in the Black Imagination, which was our previous lab. We've done an art school, we've done several Yard Youngers, and most recently we have done a residency for fugitives, which was in partnership with REARC Foundation and the Black London Social Justice Project. So alongside that, we are constantly and have been doing a lot of internal work and development, and we do hope to share some of this thinking with you all really soon. We've also had some team shifts that you might be aware of. So whilst we are very sad to see a day ago, we're also pleased to congratulate them in their new role as AD at Women in Theatre, so please support them where you can. And we're really excited to be working with Hannah in an artistic capacity during this lab as artist in residence. So that's very exciting. And most of you will probably know as well, we're also in the midst of quite a chunky recruitment period. And we're really excited to be expanding our team in a really intentional way this year. So watch this space. So today, with the launch of our upcoming Radical Imagination Lab, which is returning to Black frequencies, curated by the incredible Daniel Oduntan and Adeola, we're really thrilled to introduce them both to you today. And we'll be discussing some of the themes, processes, and events coming up, and of course their wonderful practices. So just to briefly introduce who we have here from the team, we have got Laura, give us a wave, Grace, Khalees, and yeah, Hannah is here also, camera off somewhere, but give us a wave virtually. So for those of you who may not know MAIA as well as others, we are an artist-led art and social justice organisation based in Birmingham, and we were founded almost 10 years ago this year. So we're making some big celebrations and big reflections this year for sure. Our work asks what it takes to move from imagination to liberation, and we work with artists to explore what the role is within that movement. With the Black imagination as a starting point, we work in community, and our work manifests across three main mission strands: sites of imagination, culture for liberation, and resourcing the movement. So as mentioned before, with relationships being such an integral part of our work that we do here at MAIA, we've actually spent the last 6 months building a beautiful and solid relationship with our artist fellows, Daniel and Adeola. And I'm going to hand over to Grace, who will share a little bit more about what our fellowship is and why we're thrilled to be working with them both. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Amber. Hey everyone, I'm Grace. I'm steward in the Fellows Lab, and I do a mix of sort of storytelling and producing at MAIA. I'm a white woman with brown hair tied into a ponytail. I've got gold hoops in and an olive long sleeve top on, and a brown snuggly blanket draped across me because I'm really cold. So yeah, just a little bit on why we've invited Adeola and Daniel to be MAIA Fellows. So as Amber was just speaking to, MAIA's work proposes that if artists are able to give form to ideas, if that's the skill of an artist, then how might they be able to give form to the infrastructures and the spaces and the relationships and the ecologies and everything else that we need to move towards liberation? And in that paradigm, culture becomes something more than a nice to have or a consumable entertainment or a decoration. It becomes strategy, it becomes a tool for resistance, for organising, for practicing and rehearsing liberation into being. But for those rehearsals to not just replicate the same cycles of violence and oppression and extraction and erasure that we see everywhere, as artists, as dreamers, as organisers, we have to have a critical analysis of those systems of oppression. Otherwise, we will just fall into the same traps. So the idea of the fellowship was to work with two artists that hold that analysis in a way that's deeply aligned with MAIA's mission and vision, and who are actively exploring the depths of that analysis through the work that they're making. Tony Patrick, who's an amazing practitioner, I don't know if you guys met him in the last lab, but he says, he was at Yard recently, and he said something like, art is the medium through which we hold complexity. And everyone was like, yeah, that is what art is. But I really can't think of two artists that do that better than Adeola and Daniel. I think the fabric of their practice is so textured and varied. They're both multidisciplinary, and the way that they give form to that kind of complexity and honor multiplicity is really incredible to witness. So yeah, I think because we are already pushing through time, I'm going to read Daniel's bio and then pass on to Daniel, and he will talk through some of the thinking and the curation behind the lab. So Daniel Oduntan is an interdisciplinary media artist occupying the spaces between visual art, sound, and performance media. The core of his work is asking questions of his spatial reality, which encompasses not only the built environment, but also the multisensory. Daniel's practice is idea first, medium second, which allows him to create in a style described as explorative participation design, a method of research and speculation to build inclusive futures. Daniel has worked with the V&A Museum, the Bartlett School of Architecture, Mohn Centre for Children's Health and Wellbeing, Walk Records, and the Design Museum. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to you, Daniel, if that's okay.
Thank you. There's a bit of a 2-second delay there. I'm hearing a bit of an echo. I don't know if everyone else hears it. It feels like radio because I can hear myself. Okay, no one else can hear it. I can hear it. So yeah, my name is Daniel Oduntan. Pleasure to be here. It's been a real. Let me turn this down because it actually does feel like I'm hearing myself. Okay, let me talk with that. So yeah, it's been a real process and experience being as a fellow for the MAIA Group. I remember when I was first approached about this. It's something which, a busy year, and I thought to myself, can I really, really get deep into this? And I think as I've continued and I've progressed through it, it's very much a work in progress, and everything here is, still kind of developing, still kind of like a work in process and progress. But the lab session is kind of an opportunity for me to kind of, I don't know, dip into themes that I'm quite excited about and curious about, and maybe just share it and have a conversation with the rest of the community about. So when I was first approached about the concept of Velos and the whole idea of hospitality and that being the point of focus, I wanted to explore that. And it's like, it was because there was this element of radical hospitality, and radical, I mean, for people, for communities that may have in the past not been subjected to hospitality, in the past may have been on the fringes, or people that have been dehumanized. And I started to think about Birmingham's history, and I spent a few days, a few weeks going around Birmingham, and I've got a few pictures and stuff. Maybe this is not the space to share those, but during the lab session we'll do that. But I started to look at Birmingham's rich history and culture and community, and it kind of led me to the idea that it's very different from London in a sense. I feel like Birmingham's community is more it's more of a internal connection where families are connected by relatives and friends, and I feel there's something very special in that I wanted to explore. So as I kind of delved a bit more into that, I looked at the space of hospitality, the home, and how much that plays a part in our education, our understanding, and our how we share, how we live, how we experience joy. And that kind of led me into sound system culture and the idea of that the sound, the system being in the living room, the sound system being in the living room, and hi-fi systems. And I was born in the 80s, so hi-fi is something which I explore in my practice. Sound is something I explore in my practice, and that kind of then led me into the idea of radio, and not just any radio, but pirate radio, and how in a dial, in a twist, you can experience the greatest form of hospitality, inviting someone into your home, into your living space, to play, to share, to talk, to conversate. And as I looked at pirate radio, I looked at things like Metro FM, which was a pirate station in Birmingham. It ran from 1989 to 1996, and it started to make me think about the lack of hospitality to pirate radios, DJs, and sound system culture from the Department of Trade and Industry, and how they would tune in, and they would tune into these stations, and they would hunt them down, find them, confiscate their equipment, destroy their records. And I just thought, how interesting is that, to kind of reverse that and see if we can explore that as a point. And also not even just explore that, but also the technology and the idea of spatial design, and also space travel. Because one thing I realized is that the FM signal dial, unlike digital signals that we have today, and everything that we share and stream, doesn't get broadcast, in a sense, via a frequency, and therefore it's not able to have access to this whole idea of the eternal signal. So those stations, if anyone's ever listened to a pirate radio station, those signals are still traveling in space. Those signals are still active and alive. And I just thought about archives and the idea of that. Imagine someone taking your records, destroying your equipment, but in a sense, the signal was still traveling, the signal was still alive. I found that to be quite inspiring and something which I wanted to explore. So I guess these lab sessions kind of are pricking at that, and are kind of like trying to point at the past, but also the present and the future. So I'll go through just some of them, and some of the detailing. I don't know if I'm running over time. Someone could tell me if I am. Oh, okay, perfect. So the first session is more so just in conversation with some amazing people that I really respect and have a lot of time for. And I just think it's a blessing that I get to talk with them for an hour or so. So we have David Sonobi from No Signal Radio. And David, with his brother Jojo, they set up No Signal during the pandemic. All the DJs basically were playing from their rooms, playing from their bedrooms, streaming from their bedrooms live, and it became this kind of sensation online that then turned into an actual real station. And they're very much focused on Black radio, very much focused on community. They had Reese, which was like a party night, which they have and they still run, and that in a sense they provided them the vehicle to provide for that community. So very inspiring. And I'll be interested to hear his thoughts on the future of broadcast, the future of Black broadcast media. We also have Ade, who's a researcher, an artist, someone I have immense respect for. They have a clinic where they currently are exploring the idea of care, design care, and as we are kind of entering this new age of this new internet universe, this new metaverse, and the idea that our archives don't necessarily belong to us. We're on platforms every day sharing our lives. Who owns it? What happens if you no longer want to be recognized? I did a thing a year or so ago called Black Wolfish, which was decided to hide Black identities with Black media, Black art, public access art. And it'll be interesting to kind of explore the future of design care with Black media production. And then Arville, who's a friend of a friend, who's one of those elders that ran sound systems, was on pirate radio, built sound systems, and still active as an amazing sound engineer and producer. And it'll be just, again, amazing to have that intergenerational conversation. The second lab session is also another, again, a theme on the idea of broadcast. I wish I could share my screen. I forgot to actually share my screen. Let's see if I can do it. Have I got time to? If I have, I will. No problem if not. Let me see. Let me go back. Yes, okay, cool. Okay, let's do this, not this. Sorry, I'm muted because I'm hearing myself so much. Okay, can you see my screen? Yes. No, yes. Okay. So, Dubmology with Gary Stewart and Trevor Matheson. Let me mute myself because that echo is crazy. Okay, these guys are legends to me. Before I start, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Daniel.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Perfect. So, reason this is amazing, I get to kind of explore the idea of the audio sound workshop, I guess, system. It's called Building Frequencies. Sorry, the first lab session is Antenna, Pirate Radio, and the Future of Black Broadcast. The second kind of workshop lab session is called Building Frequencies. So it's a sound and vision workshop with myself and Dubmology. And Trevor and Gary, they're kind of like mentors in a way, of people I really look up to. Wish I could spend more time with them, and this is a great opportunity to do it. But this is going to be a really amazing workshop. We're just going to exploring their work really, and kind of the idea of what goes into building an audiovisual sound system. The idea of pirate radio. A lot of these broadcasts would happen in bedrooms, happen in living rooms, happen in you would put the towel up on the council block. And I love how they're able to kind of like with very kind of like a minimal and very strategic approach set up anywhere and turn that space into a place for storytelling, a place for wonder and curiosity. On the left, there's an image of them for a film project they did with the BFI. It's a Francis Ford Coppola film called Conversations or something, Scanning Conversations, which the idea of surveillance and the idea of like who is who and espionage and all these kind of things. And then on the right is a setup, which this is actually Gary's kitchen, which I've been kind of recognize it, but it's this living room, and I believe it's in Brixton. And again, this idea of like setting up anywhere, setting up in the home, and I kind of want to share or kind of, I don't know, explore the process of what it takes to set up a system, set up a broadcast in a living room, and how other people can do that. So in the last lab session is possibly it's a collaboration with myself and Adeola, but it's more so, again, still work in progress. But it's this idea of the live broadcast, the community broadcast. I'm very much inspired by this community broadcast that happened in the 70s, late 70s, called Open Door, own your say in your own way. And it was a broadcast that was led by elite East London community group, and they had friends with collaborations with the BBC. But it was a really live, rough around the edges broadcast that shone light on the views and the voices of young people from East London, young Black people from East London. And yeah, they had like really amazing segments. They had like their own version of like telling the news and the weather. They had interviews, they had music. And yeah, something I'm kind of really interested in right now, and kind of seeing how to kind of bring that back, the idea of a live broadcast, and possibly an art piece which I'm working on, which will incorporate the whole idea of a broadcast sound system, and how that kind of plays into modern day eternal archives. Maybe if it's not something which you can maybe tune in via FM radio, but the idea that it does emit into space, the idea that it does travel forever, is something which conceptually I'm really interested in, and hopefully can be a source of inspiration for others. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now, and hopefully that made sense. If not, you can ask me questions later.
Thank you, Daniel. That was perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna read Adeola's bio, and then Adeola will speak to her curation, and then we'll come back for questions afterwards. So Adeola is an artist living and working in Cardiff, Wales. Originally from Trinidad and Tobago, she is interested in folk and Indigenous performances, engaging discourse around identity, diaspora, and ritual. Her practice involves drawing, painting, performance art, spoken word, and writing. She is particularly drawn to performances of transformation, as in carnival and masquerade, as well as the making of sacred spaces. Her recent work involves painting and photography heavily rooted in African diaspora spirituality. Adeola is founder and director of Laku Neg, an artist-run company invested in African diaspora knowledge exchange. And I'll hand over to you if that's okay, Adeola. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you. First of all, just want to say immense gratitude, for the invitation to be involved as a fellow with MAIA. It's been amazing. I think coming from my generation, but also living in Cardiff, you guys were a breath of fresh air. You would not believe, really a breath of fresh air. So it's a real honor to be in this with you, on this journey with you, as part of you. I also want to just say that today is Shango Day. I'm wearing red, Shango Day. In African diaspora spirituality, and Shango is sort of the energy of lightning and thunder. Shango is sort of seen in the diaspora as the warrior who's always victorious. Shango walks with Oya, who is the energy of the wind. Today is very windy in Cardiff. Of course, with energy of the wind, she's also a warrior, very much seen as the energy of change and transformation. We know that the wind can be a cooling breeze, but can also be a tornado, right? So we just kind of welcome that. I'm kind of resonating with that because of how Amber opened and kind of acknowledged what's happening right now, So yeah, just trying to connect those two forces and hoping, of course, for some sort of positive transformation at this time. So with the fellowship, I feel like I was trying to find those meeting points where Adeola meets MAIA. And it's interesting because in some ways I felt that my work or my contribution was one where I wanted to gift something. It could be because of being a mother, but I felt like there was something about my wanting to look after you, to make sure you're well on your journey, but also to gift you something. And in many ways, that gift was a seed. It started off very much as a literal seed, I was literally looking for something that you can grow. And then my seeds turned into more of a metaphor. And so I was exploring painting for a while. And in that painting, I'm looking at ancestry, I'm looking at connection, I'm looking at symbols, I'm looking at how we connect, how we keep well together. And then what that means. And with painting, you're looking at lines and patterns and colors and shape and form in order to tell this story. So you don't have to use words to explain it. It's within the fabric, it's within the paint, it's within the application of anything you put on there that begin to symbolize or begin to connect in your head all these complex things that you're trying to deal with, right? But I was really excited for the invitation to be part of the lab because I felt that it was within the lab that I could then tease out some of the things I'm trying to deal with. That is the painting that I'm working on, okay. And in the lab, I was really kind of trying to contribute or seed something to do with healing, something to do with empowerment, and something to do with the way we do what we do, and kind of recognizing that and then building and growing that. I think there would be four connecting points in this. So the first was is a conversation with my father. Shall I say that, or should I just call him Royal Gibbons? A conversation with Royal Gibbons, who's a director, playwright, producer in Trinidad. In many ways, he is my, I look up to him a lot. He's my hero in many ways, you know, he's my hero in many ways, yes. And he wrote an essay called Room to Pass that very much looks at our Indigenous knowledge and how we grow from where we are and how we empower ourselves. And so the conversation will be in and around that essay, Room to Pass. But also, you know, it's always more than one thing. It is also about an opportunity to sit at the feet of elders, you know, and what that means in terms of that dynamic. My generation and then your generation, you know, and then his generation, you know, what does that mean, and what does that grow? And what does that then bring up, you know? So there's that. There's also a reading of an essay called what is it called? It's what is it called, Grace? Do you remember the name of the essay? The Cultural Ethos of the African Diaspora, I believe, by Clinton Hutton. And within that, he speaks about rituals of repossession. And I think this reading is a sort of like collective reading together, going through aspects of this essay and kind of just teasing out what does that mean in terms of rituals of repossession? How do we engage a deeply academic text in our circumstance and from where we are, with all of our coming with what we come with, and how does it resonate with us now at this time, from where we are? Yeah, the creative ethos. Okay, thank you, Grace. So yeah, it's just an opportunity to sit together without having any expert in the room, all kind of just like entering this text where we are and where we're from. The other sort of lab seed is, again, an opportunity to sit at the feet of elders. It's a mask making workshop with Amaru Chatawa. Amaru is based in London and originally from St. Vincent. He is a mask man, so he plays carnival, he makes carnival. And he also does loads of other things. He is an intellectual, he is a philosopher in many ways, but I would call him a yard philosopher, you know, one of those people. And again, it is about learning that skill of making mask, but it's also an opportunity to sit and hear and be in dialogue with someone who, again, I really look up to. And then finally, as Daniel said, it is the opportunity to be part of this community broadcast. The aspect of this community broadcast that I'm interested in is is an opportunity to dance. Again, we're still kind of evolving it, but Daniel, you said something so beautiful when you talked about own your say in your own words. I really love that. And I feel like the opportunity to dance invites you to do that, to move how you want to move, to be how you want to be at that time. And if you are interested in this, the broadcast and the kind of like community news and TV, I'm here, okay? I'm willing to contribute to that vision. But yeah, so all of this is, that's where we are, and that's what I'm offering in terms of the seeds that I'm planting for the lab. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I want to say right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adeola. That was pure poetry, as always. So I wondered if anyone wanted to ask any questions. We've got just over 10 minutes. And yeah, we'd love to invite some questions. You can pop them in the chat if you aren't in the mood to speak through a mic. or just come off camera or raise a hand, whatever you like to do.
Deborah, did you want to ask a question with her? I think you're on mute. I want to hear your voice.
I just wanted to mention about the work that Daniel's doing on pirate radio. What about PCRL? They were one of the, in terms of Birmingham, one of the first, or the first pirate radio stations. And I think PCRL has now become, they've kind of morphed into new style radio, and they're based at the Millennium Centre on Dudley Road, which isn't far from you. So there's a lot of history about PCRL, you know, and kind of how it started and sort of the grandfathers, I would say, and grandmothers of pirate radio. Yes, I think that's something worth looking at.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my window for a second. Yeah, I'm still very much. See, the landscape of pirate radio is so vast. You know, it was a whole, you know, industry, underground industry that was just, you have to kind of like, it's, I kind of know the station, depending on where your locality was, you know, you have certain memories because of the bandwidth restrictions. So I'm still kind of exploring the landscape, the pirate landscape of Birmingham itself, and also London itself, because depending where you are, if it's South East London, you won't get stations in North, and you know, vice versa. So I'm still looking into that, but it's something which I will definitely be looking up, and it may be a great opportunity to actually bring them and make them make them involved in possibly some of the workshops or even the community broadcast. So if anyone has any like ideas in terms of who should be present when it comes to like the idea of Black media production, I'm still learning about that landscape, cultural landscape of Birmingham. So please, yeah, feel free to email, send me a shout. I'll be very much appreciative of that.
Because some of those presenters actually moved into, I don't know the word official, I can't say it, I can't remember, sort of more legalized presenting. So it was a platform as well, you know, for.
Yeah, it's so funny because even the politics into that was so, you know, it's, I'm going to share my screen real quickly, but this one article I came across kind of talking about Metro FM was really interesting because it kind of showed to me the idea of that not everyone was able to kind of go professional, like some of the fees involved in actually, you know, going from a pirate station to an actual proper, you know, fully licensed station, which is extortionary, especially for a community that have inherited so much disadvantages from, like, say, the Black diaspora and all these economic things. It was like a nail in the coffin for a lot of stations. And it'll be interesting to hear possibly how they went, how that process was, if it was how, and possibly how it was funded. But there's just one article I came across, if I can quickly find it. If not, then I'll leave it for another day. But it was just, you know, the idea that, yeah, I don't know if you can see the DTI Mugs Pirate Radio. You see that? From 1989. Yes, no?
Yeah.
So do you see that article?
See, yeah.
Okay, great, cool. So you know, this goes into the whole idea that, well, you know, it was a ploy. A lot of the DJs that actually went off air, hoping to become fully legit radio stations, because the government of the DTI had said that they would give them a shot at it. A lot of them never went back on air. So when they came off air, that was it. And I the idea of these lab sessions, not necessarily to be a glossary of like all the stations that ever existed, or all the DJs and all the presenters that were involved in that, but it's to honor that in a way of like conceptually looking at this idea of the everlasting signal, the everlasting broadcast, and how as a community, as we become more and more separated, segregated, and disbanded across like housing and all these spaces, how do we connect? How do we make sure that our stories are protected? How do we make sure that our our thoughts and our experiences are preserved? And I just think the idea of like being of a terrestrial species, but then there's this other idea that if you send that signal out, if there is technology on the other side to receive that, that means that those radio stations, those memories, our thoughts, our fights, our passions, our losses, our joys are being received. And I think as a human, it's a human race, and maybe a non-human race, I think it's important that we are thinking about that. You look at things like AI and things like which will be possibly the fourth industrial revolution. What's our say in that? It's always a day late and a pound short when it comes to like communities that have been on the fringes. So with me going back into legacy, or going back into like legacy technology, it's a way to kind of start afresh and maybe say, going forward, we should be thinking on a scale that is maybe more than just locality and just postcodes, but maybe intergalactically, I don't know. But that's my idea of a space, and actually thinking of space, and exploring. My practice explores space. But yeah, hopefully that does a bit of a tangent. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if it did, but
That was great, thank you.
thanks.
We've got a question in the chat from Amara, and then I'll come to UC if that's okay. So Amara said, love your daily, as you know. What are you thinking about carrying with you on your journeys after this fellowship? Daniel,
question, but maybe cryptic. Carrying with me, as in carrying.
So when the year comes to an end, how are you gonna carry what's emerged from this year into?
Oh wow! Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. I mean, the idea of I think being on MAIA has allowed me to this concept of like the everlasting signal. That's something that has come out of my fellowship studies, and I'm something that I really want to explore more of in my own personal work. And the idea of, because my practice is visual art, sound, and performance media, and the idea of performance media and the idea of like performing something and creating a space for that performance. How do audiences interact with that performance? And not just audiences here on the terrestrial level, but maybe audiences in the future that I will never meet, or entities that are non-human possibly. How am I interacting with those? And the idea of the broadcast and the signal, that technology translating into time and space, or manifesting in that, is something which is super interesting, which I hope to explore more. I'm currently also studying stage design, performance design with National Theatre for like 2 years. And the idea of creating a space, creating a stage, is something which, and maybe not a stage that is physical, but maybe a stage that is like, conceptual, is something which this fellowship has allowed me to kind of see. And I think it resonates with the idea of the idea of Velos being possibly, maybe it's not a physical space as yet. Maybe it's a space that goes to other spaces and sets sail and travels, and embarks this idea of hospitality and rest and joy and nourishment and community. But yeah, those are the kind of things. Don't know if that makes sense again, but hopefully you get some of it.
Perfect sense. Thank you, Daniel. Mara said, really love your framings on the ever-living, everlasting signal revival in the context of death, displacement, impermanence of form, Black signal as a site of liberation, emancipation, and fugitivity. Adeola, I don't know if you feel to respond to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm taking from it this idea of imagination to liberation. I'm still very much working on carnival as an aesthetic, and still really kind of delving into that carnival and ritual, or carnival as ritual. And I think it's about, for me, this process has been about being uncomfortable, not knowing, which sounds like a bad thing, but it's not, okay? It's a really good creative thing. And what it means to kind of like step in your discomfort, step into that, and do it anyway, do the work anyway. I feel it's, for me, it's about listening to gut instinct, particularly when you talk about imagination, where that starts from, when we think about dreaming, or we think about imagining, and we think about listening to that internal voice and then manifesting that in whatever shape and form, but being kind of like true to that dream, being true to that inner voice, being true to intuition. Yeah, and continuing to use that kind of like carnival aesthetic within that. It's about kind of, for me, the next step is really just releasing fear and just kind of like stepping more into myself, which sounds really selfish, but I'm sure it's not in some ways.
No, we love to see it, Adeola. Thank you. C, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I did have a question. Oh gosh, now I feel like I kind of don't want to ask it. I thought about it and it sounds really like critical. I'm not sure. I don't want to be that person. But yeah, I'll first of all, I just want to say, like, I feel yeah, I feel inspired, and I'm looking forward to, I guess, the sessions that I can attend. The mask making sounds amazing, and that's definitely something I'm curious about. Daniel, I was gonna ask you if, oh gosh, so considering like the huge, I guess, gender imbalance that exists within music technology, how might you approach the revival of sound system culture? I'm sorry if it sounds, I'm sorry if I'm like making you think about like negative stuff.
Not at all. No. Yeah, there, you know, there have been sound systems set up by community groups to help kind of rebalance this. I think there's Boss. That's one sound system I can think of right now, top of my head, that kind of are a very accessible sound system, and they distribute their resources, technology. They let people hire out their equipment, all these kind of things. Historically, that balance has not always been there, or the access has not always been there, and it's something which I'm curious about exploring more so in my work. But I think it's something which collectively I think we need to design better. Possibly, a lot of it is hidden in kind of this misogyny and kind of like bro culture of just, you won't get it, you won't understand it. And I think I'm always been about explaining something from the most, direct way. And I think, historically it hasn't always been that way. And I don't think, again, this is not, with this, I don't think I'm trying to teach people how to kind of like create technology that will allow you to broadcast. I think there's a element of do for self, or DIY, and that's why it's like an open kind of invitation for everyone. I think it's more so looking at the Black diaspora and their relationship with media, and how past, present, future, how we want that to look like. I think, I think it's something which I'm aware of, but again, it's not going to be an exhaustive kind of deep dive into like pirate radio and the DJs that were involved in it, more so the experiences and how we can build better and design better. And I think Yade would be someone to really like. I'd be really interested to hear their thoughts on the design aspect of archives and the design aspects of sharing media. And that's something which could be interesting, because I don't know everything. I don't know all the answers, but I do know that it starts with design. Once you know better, you know you design better. And one of the reasons why we don't design better is because we don't ask any questions. We don't ask any questions because we think we know the answers. So I think it starts with the curiosity and questions like this, you know, and don't be shy to kind of express these views, because I'm someone who's very much, I love all aspects of opinions, and I think it's important to have a diverse kind of thought process when it comes to planning and production and all these things. So yeah, but I don't know if that answers your question. But maybe if you the first lab session, you could I could probably even put that as a touch point, as a bullet point to maybe think about discussing. But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for answering. That I agree with what you said about like not like I don't say this for you to like, I guess, interrogate like the stations that might have existed in the past, but to just think about how, like you said, we might design better, or like rebuild or build better, whatever it is that whatever's best, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely more about the future, not like thinking about the past or like attacking the past. Is always worth considering, or like thinking about yeah, I guess inclusion, and letting people into, if we are rebuilding those spaces or like remodeling those spaces, I guess let people who haven't previously been able to experience those spaces into those spaces, or give them that opportunity. But yeah, I'm waffling now, so I'm gonna stop.
No, I mean, it's important to confront the past. You know, I think it's important to do these things and ask these questions and investigate and speculate. You know, Deborah mentioned PCRL, and there's a link there. You know, those are things it's important to share and chime in where possible. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, C. We have some more thoughts in the chat. So Hannah said, some of the programme has protected Black spaces. Could you offer some more insight on the curatorial / producing decision? So that is Rituals of Repossession, which is the live reading co-learning space. And that's the mass making workshop. Adeola, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, or
yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's it was in discussion that these kinds of things came up. Rex Nettleford kind of talks, he was a Jamaican writer, Rex Nettleford, and he kind of talks about ways of becoming. And I feel there are certain things, particularly within the reading of Rituals of Repossession, that speak to a particular way of becoming for Black people who've been colonized and who've experienced slavery in some ways as well, that I felt it was necessary and relevant to be in spaces with other people like that, of that experience, to begin to unpick some of what we understand from that kind of text. There is the notion of bodies that have been possessed or owned, and what it means to come with that history. And then the question of what it means to then repossess our bodies or re-own our bodies. That I think having a very intimate kind of conversation in and around that, from people with lived experience, with people who have come from that, what does that mean and what does that engender? And similarly with the masking, I think the philosophical kind of background to masking has a lot to do with people who have how do we then use the mask as a way of revealing? Mask as revealing. So it's again rooted in a kind of consciousness that is around not feeling like you're able to be all of yourself in everyday life. And what does the mask then facilitate? So yeah, those decisions were made in and around those kinds of philosophical backgrounds.
Thank you, Adeola. We've got some thoughts from Diana Roger, which is just thoughts, such a complementary fellowship between physical making and connective frequencies. The distribution of skills to once again hijack broadcasting and to wear the possibility, the mask of broadcast, the presentation making something bigger than its source, the reactivation of imagination from a kitchen table into someone's mind, voices and sounds from the void, and the disappearance of someone once they put on a mask. I mean, those are very beautiful thoughts. Thank you so much, Diana. I just wanted to kind of end on a final question, which is just like, who do you really hope to see at these events? Like for people that are here today, who should they go and tell? Who do you want in the room? I don't know who wants to start.
Okay. I'm always good. That's so fine. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think interdisciplinary people from the elders as much as the youngers, I think it's important that we are, sharing information before it's just lost. People that feel they got something to say, people that feel they got something to give and to contribute to the idea of storytelling. We're interested in storytellers. We're interested in philosophers, thinkers, community members, artists, people that are interested in maybe exploring an interdisciplinary practice and what that may look like, how they can, use other mediums to reinforce their practice, people that want to dance, people that want to just chill and listen, the people that are interested and curious. I think the umbrella is curiosity, people that are curious. I think it's important to emphasize that a curious mind is a healthy mind, I feel. And so anyone that, wants to really discuss and be present in a space where many thoughts will be shared, I think, you're more than welcome. So, yeah.
Thank you, Daniel.
Completely agree with that. Yeah, I echo all of that. And as a bonus, it would be great to have people who may not have seen themselves within that world as well. People who can then find opportunities to rediscover themselves through all of this. They're not, the ones who don't necessarily see themselves as creative, but that there is a potential there for something to blossom.
Amazing, thank you. We've come up to 12 o'clock and I want to honour everyone's time. I just wanted to really quickly make an announcement, which we'll pick back up at the next MAIA Meet-up. But just that we have appointed our MAIA associate artist, Jazz Morrison, who has already been working with the fellows. Jazz does lots of work around futurism and archives and memory, so I'm sure you can already see all of the beautiful connection points between their work, Daniel's and Adeola's. I'm going to really quickly read Jazz's bio and then we will close off for the day. So Jazz Morrison is a British Jamaican writer, multidisciplinary artist and curator, exploring Afro-speculative world building for the purpose of creating new futures. She is also the founder of creative support group Brumtown. Though her work is often contemplative, she enjoys embracing irreverence and farce too. Jazz sees herself on a journey of sense and memory making, and such a journey requires duality. I'm sure you can hear all of the beautiful connection points there. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. Please follow all of the beautiful links that are in the chat. Stay in touch, and I really hope that we'll see you all at some of the lab events. It's been beautiful having you here. Thank you. Lots of love.